All right. All right. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about section 11 of the IEP today, which is least restrictive environment. So thanks for being here. And Melissa already put into the chat. So if you're viewing live, please go ahead and sign in. Otherwise, feel free to watch the video if you're watching this when it's already up on our website, which will be soon. And there's another way to sign in, same link, QR code. Oops, sorry, too fast. All right, so for today, our kind of housekeeping or norms are always, like we just said, we do record these. So let's keep those questions general, respecting each other's views and perspectives and stay engaged. We know that it's difficult to stay engaged when we're living the Zoom lifestyle sometimes, but we're going to do our best. And here's your SST2 special education team lineup. Kristen Fazio, director, me, the assistant director, Courtney Seaman is our early childhood consultant, and Melissa Wagner is on with me today, special education and transition consultant. And we're going to walk you through the LRE section 11 of the IEP. But before we do that, we have a shameless plug for our R.A. Horn Franklin B. Walter Awards. So we award a student with a disability the R.A. Horn Outstanding Student Achievement Award each year, and also the Franklin B. Walter Outstanding Educator Award for any staff member that works and serves students with disabilities. And that can be a team of individuals as well. So we would love to have your nomination. You can see the deadline there is Tuesday, February 28th. And I will throw that link in the chat so that you have the information how to nominate. It's either a student or a staff member or a teaching team. Okay, so diving right into section 11. So the very first question for school age, does the child attend the school they would attend if they were not disabled? So if no, the team, IEP team needs to state why. And we'll get into those kind of statements in a moment. And then the next question is, does this child receive all special education services with non-disabled peers? Yes or no? So you'll see that next question is about students who are in preschool. And we're going to refer you to last week's recording and materials where Courtney Seaman walked through the entire section 11 with a preschool lens. So that's a whole different recording. And so does the child receive all of his or her special education and related services embedded within the regular classroom routine and activities? Yes or no? And if not, what prevents a child from receiving special education or related services embedded in the regular classroom routines? What prevents the child from being able to attend a general education setting? And who provides that child with instruction in the general curriculum? So those are all questions that would have to be answered if no. So I don't think I'm able to show this video. I'll make sure it's linked in the recording. This is a video that's produced by O'Callaghan that does a nice overview of least restrictive environment, but I wasn't able to share my sound today. So I'll make sure that link gets posted to our website as well. It's like a 3-minute video, so it's pretty quick.
Jen?
Yes.
It's on our resource slide in the end.
Yep, I'll just add it there.
It's already there.
Oh, it's already there.
Yep. Perfect. So they can just click on it there if they'd like.
Perfect. Okay, great. Okay, so just a kind of continue with the LRE section. A justification statement is required on an IEP if a child receives services outside of the general education setting with non-disabled peers. So that justification. So when we were looking back at this, the section 11, it says, if no, justify, this is what we mean. So if that answer is no, the justification needs to explain why the instruction can't be delivered in the general education setting, as well as why a separate setting is the best learning environment for that student. We have to keep in mind that their least restrictive environment is based on the individual needs of the child, not the child's disability. So, we have to caution that we're not placing students in a classroom that might be designated for students who are of a certain disability category, right? And it also needs to align with that student's special design instruction, SDI, or related services location. So when you're completing section 11, make sure you're looking back at section 7 to make sure what you wrote there aligns with what you're writing in section 11. And it reflects that the team has given adequate consideration to meeting the students' needs in that general education classroom with those supplementary aids and services. It needs to describe the nature or severity of the disability, is such that education, the general education classes, even with the use of those supplementary aids and services, can't be achieved. And that statement then describes potential harmful effects on the child or others, explains the current least restrictive environment placement, if applicable. Oops, it's not letting me. Okay. So just a little bit of summary of that. So some tips for the least restrictive environment section. And this would be a great visual that you might want to save and print and maybe, stick it in whatever information that however you keep that of information about writing IEPs. So the summary, there has to be a justification as to why the student cannot be served in the general education classroom, and not just a description of that LRE. And we'll show you some examples here in a few minutes. The justification must include the reasons the student will be removed from the general education setting. It must describe the supports and services that student needs to be successful, and then why those can't be provided within the general education classroom. And that, like I said, that statement must align with the SDI, the special design instruction location, and the statement must reflect that the general education classroom was considered. Okay. So when we're thinking about a change of placement and least restrictive environment, so if an IEP team is seeking a more restrictive placement, such as a placement in a separate school or classroom, the district needs to prove that FAPE, free appropriate public education, is not being provided in the current setting. And that if that IEP team is seeking that less restrictive placement, such as placement in a general education classroom, the district will have to prove the current placement is not the student's LRE. And important to remember that if a student's placement is decided based on their unique educational needs as outlined in their IEP, and placement, like we talked about before, placement should not be decided based on administrative convenience for the school or classroom space. And if a child has to move to a more restrictive educational environment, the goal is always to return the child to a less restrictive placement as soon as possible. So when we're needing to amend the IEP with a change of placement, A district can't move a student to a more or less restrictive placement without parent permission. So the district needs to use that required parent invitation, PRO2, and notify and invite the parent to an IEP amendment meeting. And districts must take steps to ensure that one or both parents are present at the IEP meeting where the change of placement is going to be discussed, and those parents are afforded the opportunity to participate in that decision. That district is going to obtain and document parental consent in section 15, and must provide prior written notice, PRO1, to the parent. And that is a hyperlink for you. That resource, it's a chart that outlines all of the required notification pieces of the IEP. So it's a handy piece to have with you.
And you know what, Jen? The required notification chart, it's really handy also if you save it on your desktop, because there's like a little graph that tells you like a check when you should notify and how, like when you need to use your PRO1, when you need to use your PRO2 to be compliant. But then as you scroll down, it gives like little tips. Like if you looked on page 4, it tells you how are you going to amend the IEP that you needed parent permission, that you need, so it's really something nice. Like one you told everyone that to print or save and put in your documents. This one's a nice one too, just to have. It's several pages long, so you may want to just put it on your desktop, but it's a good resource to look back at.
It is a good resource. Helps with when you're amending, but it helps with a lot of other pieces too. So it's a great resource. All right. Turning it over to Melissa.
Okay, we're going to give you it's our compliant, not compliant game. We're going to give you some justifications, and you can let us know if you think they're compliant or not compliant. If you just want to do a thumbs up or thumbs down in the chat, that would be great. Or if you want to unmute and say compliant, not compliant, whatever you feel most comfortable with. So let's do the first one.
No.
Okay. So if I put no, that they're not going to receive special education services with their non-disabled peers, and then I wrote, Annie receives instructions in a resource room for math and reading due to her disability. Is that compliant or non-compliant?
I'm seeing non-compliant in the chat. And another.
Okay, Jen, go ahead and hit it.
Okay.
It is non-compliant, and we put why. So this justification indicates where the student is receiving instruction, but it does not indicate the why. It doesn't say why. And it didn't tell us any evidence that the general education was considered first. Good job. We got that one. Okay. How about this justification? Sam's need for intensive one-on-one or small group instruction. He receives intervention and remediation in reading and math in a resource setting to limit distractions, allow for in-depth reteaching, and guided practice. Sam has been unsuccessful in the general education setting, even when provided a small group or one-on-one scaffold support and response better to instruction in his areas of deficit in a highly structured small group setting with continuous intensive instruction and monitoring. Is that a compliant justification or non-compliant?
You can unmute or you can put your response in the chat.
You can even give us a thumbs up, thumbs down.
Good.
I'd say compliant.
Okay, we got one compliant
and another.
And another.
Because it addresses the successes and the non-success. Okay, and then another non-compliant. Ready to see the results?
This one is compliant. Okay.
Want to go back and talk about why, or are we good?
We can. We'll go back. Why? Joey, why did you
Oh,
stay compliant? Because you were the first, if you don't mind.
no, I don't mind. I just think it is addressing like what he actually needs it for and the reasons why, to allow that in-depth reteaching, the guided practice, like kind of what they're doing. Also that one-on-one scaffolded support for those deficit areas. I think that's important to have in there when you're doing that so that it's not just general, so it's more specific to exactly what his needs are or for those successes.
Yep. And it also said he had been unsuccessful in the general education setting. So we know that they did look at that first.
Mm-hmm.
They did.
I guess the reason I was thinking it was non-compliant was because it doesn't, it's not clear to me for how much or how long, but then I thought, well, but that's in section 7. So
yes, Wendy, I'm glad you pointed that out, because if someone was looking at this, they could look back at section 7 to see the time and frequency and location, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was a great point.
Good.
Daisy receives resource room instruction in reading and executive functioning skills. The resource room is equipped with sensory items such as fidgets, wiggle seats, chair bands, and timeout space. Daisy has access to large print, reading rulers, colored overlays, and text-to-speech devices in the resource room to help her with her reading instruction. That was fast, Jamie, but you're right.
Fast. And another one.
I agree.
It looks like the consensus is not compliant. And you're right.
Because what did that basically do? It basically described the resource room and the assistive technology that they had in the resource room. And I guess, according to OEC, sometimes this happens because it really was a nice list of things that Daisy could use in the resource room, but it didn't give any evidence that she first was considered for the general education, and it wasn't really a justification.
Yeah, it doesn't say why she or how she was unsuccessful using those items in the general education setting, because those are all items that could be in the gen ed setting.
Yep, that's what Wendy said.
Oh,
in the chat. That's
Thank you.
Spot on. You two
All
are
right.
the same thing. You're spot on.
Nice job,
Wendy. Yeah. A lot of those things could be. So why would she have to be in the resource room when we could provide that in the gen ed setting? Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the last one. Justin receives physical therapy services outside of the general education setting due to the need for expanded space for safety and therapeutic instruction in navigating and or using other areas of the building, such as stairwells, hallways, gymnasium, playground, etc., which cannot be practiced in the classroom.
I say compliant.
I got one compliant. Compliant. Lots of compliance.
Okay.
And it is. You can see that they did consider the general education classroom, but all those other pieces that he needed for his PT couldn't really be done in the general education classroom. And it gave a good justification as why. So, Jen, I told you this is our resource page, and I do have the link for the least restrictive environment from Ocali, and you can see it has 3.5 minutes. That's a quick one. Mm-hmm. But if you wanted to see a bigger video, it's 30 minutes for UDL and the LRE, also from Ocali, also excellent source. There's that second link. And then there's 2 other links on there that you could use for resources for LRE.
Perfect.
And then do we have any questions? This one was short.
I do have one question, which I probably should know the answer to, but if the student is only pulled out for small group testing, does that go in section 11, or are we covered with it being in 7? Like, does that mean that they're not provided everything in the gen ed setting?
Yes, you would put that in 11. There should be,
Okay.
you have that drop down where it's like not more than a percentage of time.
Yeah, I'm just talking about, because that part's not viewable to the parent, like what's written in the 11
Right.
notes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's for your EMIS coordinator. Yes. Yeah, because it's not happening in the classroom. We have to say why.
Okay.
So I just put the link into the chat to access these slides that we're using today, but they'll also be on our website probably tomorrow. And here's where they're going to be. And I'll also put that in the chat. So all of the IEP happy hour sessions that we've done up until now are already on our website. And we have 2 more sessions left, March 4th, sections 12 and 13, and then March 18th, 14 and 15, and invitations and PRO 1. So let me go back and grab this for the chat. And this link I'm putting in right now is our PD on demand section of our website, where you'll find all of these recordings and the presentation slides. So if you wouldn't mind, please give us your feedback. You can I'll put that link in the chat as well. Or you can use the QR code. Okay, there's the link in the chat.
And if tomorrow you think to yourself, I should have asked Jennifer or Melissa, whatever, just email us. We'll be happy to answer any questions for you.
Yeah. All right.
And thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for being here.